Gimbals, gimbals, so many gimbals, and so little that makes any of them stand out. So what makes the Feiyutech Scorp Mini stand out? They think it's the fact that it can hold your phone, an action camera, a point and shoot, and a mirrorless camera. I think it's something different. So when Feiyutech reached out to me to review their Scorp Mini gimbal, I was quite intrigued by this gimbal. I'd seen other reviews of other gimbals in the Scorp range, and I really like the design. If you remember the ZV-1 S, that's actually my favourite gimbal of all time, and the design where you sort of hold it like a top handle and it's easy to get into that underslung mode is one of my favourite things about this gimbal. But then when you go down to the more point and shoot and APS-C mirrorless style gimbals, there's not really been one with that top handle design. Even Z&'s own Crane M3 and M2S doesn't have that design, it's more of a traditional gimbal design. So when this came out and I could see that it could hold, you know, your ZV-1s and your ZV-E10s, and it still had that similar design to the Weebill S, I thought it could be a good option for people who are fans of the Weebill S but have smaller cameras. Having tested it out, it obviously doesn't have the motors or the strength that the Weebills have, and it's not really designed for that. But I think it could suit people with very specific setups, for example the ZV-1 or the ZV-E10 with specific lenses. So as I've mentioned, this gimbal has the Weebill-esque form factor, which means you can hold it with one hand like this, like a traditional gimbal, or you can hold it with two hands, and this one is really meant to be held with two hands just because of the analog stick and the controllers on the front there. But it just makes it really easy to hold, it's really comfortable and easy to get into underslung mode as well. The Scorp name, by the way, someone needs a pay rise for that. It sounds sick and genuinely suits the product line. Talking about that product line, there's a few different gimbals in the Scorp range, starting with the smallest, the Scorp Mini. Then you've got the Scorp C, which is more of your sort of Weebill S style gimbal. Then you've got the regular Scorp, which is verging into like the DJI RS-C territory. And then you've got the Scorp Pro, which is for your big boy cameras and more of like a DJI RS-3 competitor. They all have a similar kind of design, but let's start with this one here. So of course we've got the wheel on the side, which can be used to control your pan, roll or tilt axis. And you can change which axis it controls using that button next to it. And then you've got a dedicated FPV button on the same side as well. On the flip side, we have the power button just on its own here, but the main action happens on the end of the handle, where we've got the control stick, we've got a record button, which obviously can start your recording if you connect your camera up to the gimbal, and we've got an M button, which by default is set to lock all the axis. We have two function buttons on the left and right of the handle, so we've got F1 on the left and F2 on the right, and by default F2 is set to lock the screen so you don't accidentally press anything. The whole gimbal is controlled through this little touchscreen, which is actually pretty responsive. Like, it's not going to feel like your iPhone touchscreen, of course, but it does get the job done. Like every other gimbal, you can change your motor settings, shooting modes, and dial in your follow speeds with the screen. But one of my favourite things is these scenario modes, where you can set it up to take panorama for you, or in my opinion the most useful one being the track video mode, where you can set it to do some really slow pan and tilts if you're filming B-roll or something. This is all best if you connect the gimbal to your camera with the included cables, of course. Each axis has locks which feel pretty sturdy, and these twisty bits to balance are a joy to use. I'm not a massive fan of the quick release plate, it seems a bit flimsy and it's not easily adjustable on the tilt axis in my opinion. So I was actually really surprised to find, especially for a gimbal of this size, that it could handle my favourite professional setup, the Sony a7S III with the 55mm 1.8 on it. It's a relatively heavy setup for a gimbal of this size, but it definitely handled it like a champ. The footage is smooth and I didn't experience any vibration or anything like that. I'm actually really impressed by how it handles a camera of this size, and so something like the ZV-E10 with most of the lenses that people will be using for that camera will be a breeze for this gimbal. The ZV-1 also balances perfectly on this gimbal. In my opinion, one of the worst things about that camera, the Sony ZV-1, is the stabilization. If you're going to move with it, you're going to get shaken it, even with the active stabilization on. So having this gimbal and shooting at 70mm on the ZV-1 to get footage this clean is a dream. I will say this wasn't actually easy getting it balanced though. The auto calibration didn't work at all, so I ended up going out, auto calibrating it with the ZV-1 on it and getting just some really shaky footage. And it's something that's actually taken a few really frustrating attempts to get even close to right, but I think I'm almost there, so here's some examples. Overall, it's a really comfortable gimbal to use. The screen and the interface is really simple and easy, and with some fine adjustments in the settings, you can really get this to look as smooth as any other gimbal. It's also good that it can balance your ZV-1, ZV-E10, and also some full frame setups if you plan to upgrade in the future. So should you buy this gimbal? Well, it's currently a Kickstarter project and it's going for about $299. Which in pounds is about 1,000. which unfortunately in pounds is about the same right now. But that still undercuts its competitor, the Z & Crane M3. I haven't actually used that gimbal, but it does seem pretty similar. I think it's really going to come down to personal preference if you're choosing between the M3 and this. But personally, as someone who used the Weebill S so much and loves this sort of top handle design, I'd always choose this one over that M3. So what do you guys think? Is this design appealing to you? Or would you rather go for something a bit more compact like the M3 or the M2S? Let me know in the comment section. That's been it from me. If you've enjoyed this video or found it informative or helpful at all, hit that thumbs up button. If you've got any comments or questions on this gimbal, then obviously leave them down below in the comment section, and subscribe for more videos like this. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.